Mr. Washy Washy. Hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're going to be working on an A1707 MacBook Pro that has no power. This is a 15-inch MacBook Pro Touch Bar that was produced between 2016 and 2017. Let's see if we can figure out why this MacBook Pro has no power and make it work again. First thing we're going to have to do here is open this MacBook up. Let's get it put on the table, flip it over, have it on the desk, get our pentalobe screwdriver because Apple wouldn't be Apple if they didn't have a proprietary screw required to open the bottom of the machine. I don't know if I should say proprietary, perhaps rare. I haven't actually confirmed whether these pentalobes are specifically proprietary to Apple or rare. Either way, kind of a dick move given that a Torx T3 would have been just fine for these bottom screws, but rather than that, they chose to go with this thing that you can't get in any hardware store so that if you actually manage to spill liquid on your machine, you can't unplug the battery in time for it to not kill everything on your machine. So the whole thing with liquid damage is you want to make sure that there's no power going to the machine, so you want to unplug power to it as soon as you can so that when you do decide to get it treated, you don't have that continuous decay that will have occurred. And with these products, by the time your screwdriver comes in the mail, your battery's already been plugged in for probably 2 to 4 days, and at that point, you're kind of already screwed. But that's Apple. So let's... I just had a rubber band shot at me. Had a rubber band shot at me. Someone just shot a rubber band at me. You motherfucker. Whose rubber band was that? Whose rubber was that? Somebody put their rubber in my face. They put a rubber in my face and it was wet. After we close. I hit the head of the first shot. Okay, fine. No rubber band. Cease fire. Cease fire. No Israel. Paul, please ready for 8. Paul, would it be possible to put a small little opening in my in the wall of my office so that I can shoot out the office, but you can't shoot in?
I think we could do that. We need to rent a big drill.
Alright, now I gotta find where I put the charger. Okay, it looks like we're going at 20 volts, but a 0.02 amps. See that? 20 volts, but 0.02 amps. That's 20 milliamps. So we're getting to 20 volts, which means the CD3215s are speaking to the charger and telling it, I'm a MacBook, I'm not a GoPro or a phone, give me 20 volts, not 5. That also means PP353_G3 out has got to be there. But we are stuck at 20 milliamps, which means this is not turning on. So the first thing I'm going to want to do here is turn on Paul Daniels' amazingly beautiful multimeter software. You can ask Paul Daniels for this type of software by going to pldaniels.com or following his YouTube channel at youtube.com/19pld73. That's 19pld73, like his birthday. First thing I'm interested in is PP-Bus G3 Hot shorted to ground. PP-Bus G3 Hot is a 15.6 ohm short to ground. Now, why did I just measure that spot? Well, that's a great question, and you may not be exactly sure why I measured that spot. Let's open up a schematic for an E20-00281 board. Schematics you're going to have to find online on your own. The software to read them with you can find at pldaniels.com. Don't delay. Check out Paul Daniels' software by going to pldaniels.com today. That's pldaniels.com, pldaniels.com. Paul, L as in Lewis, Daniels.com. Okay, so in this list, first thing is when you don't have a power rail, first thing you do is if you have a no power situation, likely one of the power rails in the machine is missing. So you know how on a desktop PC, when you see those Molex connectors or stuff going from the power supply to the components when you're building a PC, you got the yellow wire, let's say you have yellow wire, you have the red wire, and I believe the yellow is going to be 12 volts. The red wire is going to be 5 volts. You have different power rails in a desktop, and the same thing is true for a laptop. So on a laptop, if I'm getting no power, what I like to do is I like to check the power rails. And the power rails used to be listed in the beginning of the schematic on the diagram on page 3 and then also on page 6. Now, because Apple, the most important part of the system, is going to be listed on page 107 or 109, because again, Apple. So we scroll over to page 109. And we have a list of rails. So the different rails are going to come on at different times. G3 hot rails are always on. S4 rails are on when the machine is hibernating. S3 rails are on when the machine is sleeping. SO rails are on when it's on. So, for example, the G3 hot rail, that's, let's say, the power to charge the battery, because you want your computer to be powering the battery regardless of what it's doing. Always charge the battery. S4, hibernate. Only have this rail be on when the machine is hibernating. So you don't want the keyboard or the trackpad to be taking power when the computer's off, right? It's a waste of electricity. But you want it to be on somewhat when the machine is hibernating so that you can hit the keyboard or the trackpad and wake it from hibernation. It's not going to know to be woke from hibernation if it's not getting power. S3 rail is going to be something like memory. You don't want that to be on when the computer's off, but you also don't want that to only be on when the computer's on. Because when you put the computer to sleep, that's suspend. The CPU doesn't have to be on, the screen doesn't have to be on, the fan doesn't have to be on, but the memory has to be on so that whatever you had going on in your desktop, whatever programs you had open, stay open because they were suspended to memory. And the next is the SO rail. That's the rails when the machine is always on. So think of it like a little pyramid. So you have G3 hot, S5, S4, S3, SO. And I checked the first G3 hot rail that was on this list here, PP-Bus G3 hot. Now, when I right-click on PP-Bus G3 hot, it will show me everywhere in the schematic that it shows up, and I can see that it shows up right over here. That's where I measure with the multimeter. And it also says over here, voltage 13.1 volts, so I know what I'm supposed to get there. And obviously, I'm not going to be getting anything because when I check over here with my multimeter, I get 16 ohms to ground, which means that there is a short circuit to ground. Now, in the document that I have listed down below in all the videos, there is a guide that tells you if you're not getting the power rail that you're expecting to get, why? What are the causes? It could be that the enable is not present on the chip that makes it, just like a light switch. You know, the light switch has to be flipped on for the light to work. I'm not going to blame the electrical in the store. I'm not going to blame the outlet. I'm not going to blame the bulbs. I'm not going to blame the fixtures if the light switch is switched off. Second thing it could be, the chip itself is bad. Third thing it could be, the rail is being created, the chip is working, the enable is present, but it's being shorted to ground. Fourth, everything there is good, the chip is on, the enable is present, but the input voltage that's supposed to go into that chip is not present. So if you don't have the in, you don't have the out. Here, case 3 is true. We have a short circuit to ground, 16 ohms. That means everything that's supposed to be going to that power rail is getting sent to ground before it gets where it's supposed to. So we're going to take this board out of the case and see if we can find this short on PP-Bus G3 hot. This board was picked at random out of the slots in the front, and it may just be one of the boards that has one single tantalum cap that needs to be removed. Imagine that.
Huh. What are the chances?
Paul, I really did choose this board at random. I saw it said A1707 no power. I was fully prepared for this to need a PMIC, bunch of jumpers to be ran. How many A1707 boards do you have that wind up being unfixable?
Every once in a while.
90% of them for me are either shorted cap or bad CD3215. It really usually is one of the above.
Dead CPU, dead PCH.
That seems, yeah. Daniel, I read your old email. I have to... If anything regarding merch, honestly, if you could send it to Erica at rossmangroup.com. That's ERICA. Because she isn't very involved in that stuff, and I'm kind of busy with this stuff. But I appreciate it. I do. I would pay somebody to help me with it, but I just need the time and bandwidth.
Hands up, don't shoot.
That was meant for Steve, not you. I'm sorry. That bullet was meant for Steve's groin. Nice try, screw. Pro tip, if you listen for the screw as it falls, rather than look for it, you'll find it. I practice echolocation every time I lose a screw. Echolocation. Long screw, short hole. No, none of that here. One, two, three. All right, let's open this up. Would you prefer no screw short hole versus long screw short hole? Yep. You know what I noticed when I went to CTIA in 2014? There were so many of these stuck-up dipshits that were like, what made my service different from everybody else's service is that everybody else's service, they didn't care about putting every single screw back. But the reason that I make a living off of this and what makes me special is I put every single screw back. Every time. I would never let the device off of my bench unless every screw were put in properly. So if I drop a screw, because I am such a blowhard, I would rather find a screw on my bench that's long and put it into the short hole on an iPhone 5S so it gets blue screen rather than just deal with the fact that I lost a fucking screw because I'm human like everybody else. You know what happened to all those little self-entitled pricks? Self-righteous pricks that like to stare at you and lecture you about how they're so much better than you. You know what they were doing? They were sending phones to people like Jessa Jones and I for data recovery at $300 to $600 because they fucked them up. The self-righteous horseshit. Here's one of the things you should understand if you're experienced. By all means, try to put every screw back. If you are in a business it's not about life support or anything or safety. It's not like you're working on an airplane or something where you're expected to get shit done in 7 minutes. And if you finish the job in 10 minutes rather than 7, a customer will bitch you out and you lose a screw. It is best to put no screw into certain holes, not all holes, certain holes, than it is to put a random screw. Because if you don't know the exact fucking screw that goes in that little hole, then you could just drill right into the board and it's destroyed. Risk, reward. You know, it's never long screwed a phone. But you beautiful, sexy bastard. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Kyle. Like that was the thing that drove me nuts about CTIA. It's like because the thing is, I'm not insulting you if you care about putting everything back. What I'm saying is that there are so many people that they couldn't say the reason that I went from being a janitor to making $50,000 or $60,000 a year is because I just so happened to get caught up in the gold rush of iPhone screen repair when it became really, really popular. And at that point in time, literally any jackass with a screwdriver could jump into this business and make $50,000 to $60,000. They had to make it about how they were better than everybody else in some specific special way. They had to kind of try to justify to themselves why it is they were making the money they were making, rather than just saying, being honest and truthful about it. It would be like a landlord thinking that they were a genius, while after SoftBank gave WeWork all that money and saying, the reason that I have full occupancy in my properties is because I'm such a genius. Like, no, it's because SoftBank gave WeWork $8 to $20 billion fucking dollars, and they're renting all of your places. That has nothing to do with you being a good landlord. That is luck. And you have to be able to understand the difference between luck and skill. See, I always understood where I was in the totem pole. I'm an idiot. I'm a dumbass. I'm sometimes careless. I fuck things up, but I do my best to make them right afterwards. It's important to understand where you are in the totem pole. Okay. Rip your ribbon cable on your Tello. How the F was this thing still turning on? I'm going to try to find replacement parts and please bill my coworkers. Paul, Copaz broke my drone already.
He just got it today and it's broken?
He got it today and it's broken. It flew before I sent it to him. But it worked before I sent it to you. It worked before I sent it to you. Okay, so I have all my pieces in a bag over here. You're too hard on yourself sometimes, but I get where you're coming from. I don't think so. Again, if you think I'm smart, probably haven't met me yet. You show me someone who thinks I'm intelligent, I'll show you someone who doesn't know me. Okay. So, the board is out and on the desk. Now, what do we do from this point? Let's take a look over the board and see if we can get an idea of why it's not turning on. before we use any other kind of tactics. Just going to see what the good old eyesight gives us. That is a beautiful microscope image. By the way, I just wanted to take this time out to give a real heartfelt thank you to every single one of you that bought one of the 40 limited, 40 limited edition Rossmann microscopes with the proper trinocular camera adapter so that the image looks nice and in focus and beautiful like this one. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I didn't make, actually, I kind of lost money on the first batch. I made a little bit on the second, half of the second batch when I adjusted the price to the BS tariff. With the talk of tariffs going up, I will not be selling another one of those until all of that crap goes away. But still, just thank you very much for all of you who... Thank you. Appreciate it very much. But for those, there are 40 people out there that can start doing YouTube streams with this level of microscope quality, and that's awesome. I hope you use it for amazing things. Sorry, Paul. There's no software that's adjusting that. That's the camera itself. The camera that I got has little buttons on it. One of them's actually broken. I gotta fix it. Just gonna go through this board. That little cap really did not want to be here anymore. Looks like the cable is for the camera. So Kopaz broke the motor and the camera of my drone so far. The camera worked before I sent it to you. The only thing that didn't work was the rotor. No, seriously, the camera actually did work before I sent it to him. The only thing that didn't work was the motor. Kopaz, what the fuck you do to my drone?
Wait, isn't he certified DJI repair?
He's certified DJI repair. That's what happens. See, this is what happens when you send your device to a certified shop. I sent my DJI Tello to a certified DJI repairman. Rip my camera. Do they do something like Apple where the cable for the rotor, for the cable for the propeller, the motor is right next to or wrapped around the camera cable with glue or something like that? Because if that's the case, then it's understandable. Alright, now we're going to find a board to grab this off of. And because I'm too lazy to remove the display connector and the display cable, because that would require removing 2 screws, finding a screwdriver, finding a magnet to put them on. I mean, just saying it out loud is making me sweat. I can only imagine actually doing the work. I'm going to be using the soldering iron by itself to put this new cap on, and I'll show you how I do it. It's glued, otherwise the ribbon would pop out after a single crash and people would be raging for no image on camera after crashing. It happens a lot even when they're glued. Alright, that makes sense. That makes sense. I understand it. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I only put solder on one side. Notice that? See? Solder is on the bottom, but not on the top. So the reason I did that is because one of these I need to make level. So this has to be made level. This is really hard to do under a microscope. Usually I would do this without the microscope, but then you wouldn't be able to see it. So I kind of have to do it this way. Let's see if possible to do this sideways. Like Paul Wall would say, sitting sideways. Is it possible to do this sitting sideways? Okay. And now we solder on the top. Now this side over here is going to be closer to flat against the board. So this is how you could, let's say you didn't have a hot air station, because something one of you asked in the last AMA stream, like what do I do if I don't have all the tools, or what if I don't have the budget to have a hot air station? Well, you could have bought a cap off a Mouser, and you could have just kind of soldered it in like this. I didn't, even though this is an SMD component, I did not use a hot air station to put this in there. Now is it straight? Not really, but do you think anybody cares? They're just going to notice that the Apple Store wanted $1,500 to fix this machine, and that you wanted, you know, $100 to $500 to fix it. That's what's going to matter. So, not perfect, but clearly something that's doable. If you are truly triggered by that, the way I am right now, honestly, a little bit, you could just use hot air to flow it into place. I'm just going to remove that display cable. Before I burn it, and we just flow that into place with the hot air station. But you know, the hot tweezers that Jesse uses, they're really good and they have their use, but just not for a cap that's that large. And for stuff like this, it really is handy to be able to do it with a soldering iron. This way you don't disturb the stuff around with heat, if that's an issue. Let's see what I do. One side I put solder on, I put it down, and then it's flat on the board, whereas it's not going to be flat on the board if both sides have a bump. And with the soldering irons, it's not hot tweezers. I can't hit both sides at the same time. So that's why I put solder only on one side, not on both. And now I pushed it down on the board. There's going to be a little bit of excess solder under there. It's fine. I added some flux. I'm just going to use my iron once it heats all the way up and get that out of there. No excess. Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm just going to put the display cable back on there. And then this thing's going to work. And I think it's really important to throw these little tidbits on there that can help you to do some of the work that we do, even if you don't have the exact tools. Because one of the things I used to hear nonstop, and it drive me nuts, Lewis, I don't have a hot air station. I would replace the fuse, but I don't have a hot air station. And you don't need a hot air station to do everything. Obviously, you need a hot air station if you're going to, you want to redo an SMC or something. Duke would argue that. He would use a paint stripper, which I say no to, but Duke is crazy. Do you believe Duke when he says that he uses a paint stripper for all of this?
Only because I saw him use a hot air station and he was very uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, he wasn't up to using the hot air station. So we're going to see if this thing gives us a boot sequence now. Just clean off alcohol from the desk. clean the desk with a little bit of Windex. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Okay, we're just going to see if we get an Apple logo. This thing boot. Does it turn on? Does it... First thing I want to do, obviously, is I want to see if it takes more than 20 milliamps it was before. It was taking 20 milliamps because the PP Bus G3 hot circuit was turning itself off rather than sitting there and trying to deliver current into the short. Just get any of these cables with metal in the top off. Alright, looks like it's taking 1.5 amps at 19.9 volts, so we should be seeing an image shortly. It says the computer has thin lines running across the screen, they disappear and seem to be functioning properly, then the computer would not turn on. No power, not a hint of any power even when plugged in. So the lines across the screen, that's going to be something else. But I imagine perhaps the lines happened across the screen right as PP Bus was shorting to ground. Maybe that's the way the machine looked when it crashed. But either way, you can see that there's an Apple logo. This machine is turning on. It is taking 1.3 amps at 19.9 volts. So we were taking, at 19.9 volts, we were taking 20 milliamps. That tells us that the CD3215s are speaking to the charger and telling the charger to put out 20 volts, not 5 volts for a GoPro or 9 volts for phone, but 20 volts for a MacBook. That tells us that A, our CD3215s are working, and B, PP33_G3 hot, which is the power required for the CD3215s to turn on, is functioning and working as it should. So we shouldn't look at PP33_G3 hot, but rather we should check all the other G3 hot rails to ensure that they're working. And the next rail after PP33_G3 hot is going to be PP Bus G3 hot. We checked that rail. We had a short to ground. We didn't have to measure voltage or anything like that. And immediately when we first took out the machine, what we were able to spot was a cap on PP Bus G3 hot that was obviously shorted to ground without having to measure with a multimeter or replace that cap. We put a new one on. I showed you how to do it without having to use a hot air station, just in case you're on a budget and you only have a normal soldering iron. Show you don't need any sort of crazy special tools to do what I do in some cases. And it works. So that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of what makes this stuff worth doing. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.